I got to click all the things first. So make sure that we are live over here and over there. There we go. Hi. Here we are again on Conscious Mind Tripping with me, your host, Audrey Newmont. I am solo today. It's me, myself, and I. And if you can hear, I've got notes. It's always good when I have notes. So I'm so thrilled to have you join me. If you are joining me, wait, I got to make sure I'm over here as well. It's all these things to do. Okay, here we are. I'm live everywhere. Okay, so I have a lot of fun things to share with you. And tonight is going to be a few different topics that we're going to discuss. But first things first, announcements. We have a lot of things coming up, and I'm just about to put an email out for it. So if you're in the area, I have some open houses coming up where you can do the artwork that we do. You can make the candles. So if you've got some fun gifts that you'd like to make that are unique, we're your place. And we've got Nick's new class that's coming up in January. So if you're interested in doing the energetic healing work that he does, which is phenomenal, he's going to be starting that coming up in the beginning of January. So that is a good thing. Let me make sure I'm all good everywhere here now that I'm talking. And if you are live with me, if you could say hello and comment, that makes it very helpful for me, because then I know that everything's going well. So if you are commenting in the Facebook on Audrey Newmont, I can't see you, but I might be able to see you if you're commenting on Facebook at Newmont Center. I don't know what's going on with these things. I looked to fix it today, and I think I need some tech help. Anyway, so we have lots of fun things coming up, and in the beginning of the year, we have a lot of new classes, groups, workshops that we're going to be doing. In fact, I'm going to be starting a group coming up soon. Basically, it is a men's and women's group for people who are experiencing challenges right now. I think people want to come together and have a place to talk and to vent and to get some answers on how to deal with the stuff that's going on, because there's a lot of stuff going on. In case you haven't noticed, I'm going to be talking about some of that today. So, hey, Lisa. So Lisa's commenting on my Facebook, on YouTube at Conscious Mind Tripping. So if you go in there, if you have any questions, go to Conscious Mind Tripping on YouTube, and I can see your comments. So some of them I'm going to answer. I am real, very real. I'm flesh and bone, certainly not AI. But I will be talking about AI tonight. So if you have questions about that, let me know. Name a soccer player for an edit. Yes, this is real. Definitely real. And I can see you on Facebook as well. So I don't even know soccer players. I have friends that are soccer players, but you wouldn't know them. So I am real. And here we go. I'm going to get started. This past Saturday, I did something fabulous. I went to see Greg Braden. He was doing a workshop at the Saban Theater, and it was incredible. And for those of you that don't know, I have a book that's called The Mind Trip Game, and in it, I have quite a lot of quotes from our friend Greg Braden. So I was really excited to go to that event, and he has an assistant who is like a little angel on earth. I went up to her and was like, do you think that you could give Greg Braden my book? And she was like, yeah. And she gave it to him. And then I was like, wow, this is fabulous. So then I have a copy of my own book that I'm getting the different people that are in it to sign. So I went up to her again and I was like, do you think that you could have Greg sign my book on one of his quotes? She was like, I'm not going to guarantee you anything. And She did. So he is on page 10 and signed one of the quotes I put in there about him. And for those of you that have never heard of Greg Braden, he is one of my favorite teachers. He wrote a book, he wrote many books, and I think one of them that was the most important for me, I have a whole pile of his books over here. It is The Divine Matrix. And he has a whole bunch of them. That one in particular was a life changer for me, because in it he talks about our intelligence and I think that might have banged the microphone. Old Audrey had a belief that I was stupid, and I did a lot of spiritual work. I did a lot of mind and the mental work when I became a hypnotherapist. And there was still this loitering belief that I was cute but not smart, the dumb one, the things that my mother said. I have it in her writing. And when I was reading his books, I was like, wait a minute here. I'm actually highly intelligent. And that was a huge life changer for me. So in the book that I wrote, I put some of his quotes that I found to be very helpful in explaining who we are, how we operate, and more importantly, how to own our power, how to own that fullness of ourselves. So when he was doing this new presentation that he put out, he, yeah, Nick, it's AI Audrey intelligence. Anyway, this new workshop that he did, I could see different books put into it, and he made a just amazing presentation of showing us a bit about AI and why it's important for us not to become AI, not to take these basically these aspects into ourselves. And he makes a really compelling case basically on what it means to be pure human. This book, I did a podcast on it a while ago, and it is wildly important. And I'm not going to go into all the information because he does it really well, and that's his job. Anyway, I highly recommend checking him out on YouTube, getting this book, getting some of his other books. They're life-changing. And I met him one time, and I told him, it was years ago, back in 2010, I think, or somewhere around then. And I told him, I said, you say what the science is, and then you say, so what does that mean? And I'm able to understand you when you're saying, what does that mean? And I'm able to then reshare it in my language with my clients, with my groups. And I was working in a rehab at the time. So, it's interesting. I have never had this where I'm picking up the comments on your YouTube. So it's interesting to see where people's consciousness is at in the comments. Just saying, I'm not going to read them and get attached to them, but fascinating. So when he was doing that workshop, there's a part of it where it's important for us all to understand how we operate, like literally how our bodies work. And he talks a lot about the heart and the brain connection. And he was the first person that ever told me, I didn't know, our heart literally has a brain in it. We have 40,000 sensory neurites, and it's a neural network in our heart. So it's like a little brain in the heart. So when you're feeling and you've got those thoughts attached to it, and then you're thinking, that is creative. So when I say creative, it means it's creative inside our body with the 50 trillion cells that make up us. And each one of those 50 trillion cells is like its own little powerhouse. It's its own little energy center. And it's also, if you were to look into the cell, and we have 50,000 of them, hold on. each one of them is like its own little universe. So when my clients come in and they're like, ugh, they've got these ideas about themselves that they're not valuable, they're not worthy, they're not special, just the mere fact that we're alive means we're wildly special. We've got a quantum computer. We have a heart that produces electromagnetic energy based on our emotions, based on things, and we talk to the intelligent universe. So when you are doubting the miracle that you are, when we are armed with this kind of information and we're armed with the ability to use new methods, new thoughts, new beliefs to create in our lives, then you're changing everything. So when he was talking, it was fun because as he was talking about this one thing in particular, it's in this book called The God Code. And I'm going to put it into my basic Audrey language. When I read this book, I was like, wow, this is just fascinating. So when you're looking at your DNA, and again, this is in my basic Audrey language, when you're looking at your DNA, they're able to break it down into basically letters. And again, you want to watch Greg talk about this because it's fascinating. So those letters get broken down into the actual elements of who we are. And then he's able to take those elements and use gematria to, and basically he said it like this. He says, we're a miracle of life. And the creator is like, there's a signature within all of us about this creation that we are. And in the gematria of our DNA, in each of our 50 trillion intelligent cells, are the words, God eternal within the body. So there is this energy, this force that is present as us. And if we all learned this when we were kids, I think it would be a different world. So what I do is I take that information and I break it down into very simple terms, because a lot of us at this point, we get distracted with this and that. We have the basic education that we have, and we don't learn these things when we're kids. So that's what I share. I mean, look at yeah, you are an armed weapon system for sure. And yes, you are an intelligent manager of your magnetic universe. I love that, Tyro. 36. I'm looking at the comments real quick. I like this interactiveness. Yes, good. I like it. So when we're talking about all of this, I want to tell a story of one of my clients who has given me the permission to tell this story, because sometimes with us, it's easier to see it in somebody else's story. So I have this client that came to me a few years ago, and this person had had a stroke. So part of his brain got affected, and it affected like a whole side of his body. And when he had the stroke, it was a really traumatic experience. Just the experience itself was very traumatic. And then he went for an extended period of time, because it affected his body, where he was not driving, he wasn't doing a lot of things, and he was relying on his angel of a wife for a long period of time. And the cool thing about this guy, he's a strong character. He was a firefighter, and so obviously he had to stop doing that. And he also loved to surf. Well, one of his friends is a friend of mine, and my friend is the one, I think, that sent him to me and told me a story of after the stroke, he really wanted to surf again. And mind you, he had really thrown out it, though the body was just like not doing well. And so they got him out on the board, and it took this guy, I mean, you talk about some serious willpower and determination. He's just not going to not do it. So it took like at least like a half an hour just to get up on the board, and he did it. And so when they told me that story, it was like, I like this. This guy has a lot of determination, a lot of willpower. So he comes in, and he and his wife are in the session together, and I'm getting the history, and I'm talking with them, and I'm just learning a bit about him and about his story and kind of getting a feel for who he is. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, this guy is like pretty strong. And he's really got a lot going on. And in the session, I understood that there was a part of it where his brain got affected. And I realized that he thought his mind was affected. And so when we were talking, I looked at him at a point and I was like, I think that you're thinking in your mind that your brain was affected and your mind was affected. And I looked at him and I said, in the conversation that we're having, what I see is that your mind is intact. Your mind is good. And it was like he went from the belief system that his mind had been affected to, wait a minute, I've got all my faculties here. I've got everything that I need. And that was a changing point. So like back when I had a belief that I was stupid and I changed that belief to I'm intelligent, things started clicking into place. I started changing who I am. Same thing with this guy, where he hadn't been driving. I was like, because he couldn't see or move, whatever it was, he felt like he couldn't drive. And he really wanted to go and do this thing. And I told him, I said, there's ways that you can drive and you want to own your confidence to do it. So he's just started doing one thing after another. And before you know it, he's driving all over the place. He got his own special car to do it, van or truck to do it. And he just started changing everything, started changing relationships with people, started just really owning who he is. And it got to a point where it was like, I got to tell you, you're coming in and there's not a lot that we're talking about. It seems like you're doing really well. Why don't you, just call me next time when you need me? And so I didn't hear from them for a long time. And then recently he had a heart attack. It's a big deal, very big deal, especially when you have had an experience back here that's traumatic. And then you have another traumatic experience with your body. It can be extremely, number one, scary, but it can also be very debilitating. And so they came in. And it's really interesting. I don't know how many of you saw this, but I posted a video that I had seen of a heart, and they were talking about it. And I thought, and I showed the video to them, and I think a lot of people think it's like your heart is like this one thing. And in the video, you can look at it later on, and it's like your heart is a muscle, and it kind of wraps back into itself, and it's called a chestahedron. And it's a muscle that is pulsing and doing what it does with the blood, doing what it does with the oxygen, along with the little brain in there. And so in the conversation that we were having that day, it's like, this is an interesting moment yet again for you, because the doctors are telling him that, he needs to watch this and watch that and do all the things that they're doing. But they never really said it's a muscle. And just as much as he'd build up the muscles on the side of his body and where he hadn't been walking very well, I saw him walking here really good that day when he came last week. And so I kind of helped him to get a new perception of what he had going on. And so just as much as he had built up the muscles in his body, he has every ability to build up the muscle in his heart. So we're talking a little bit further, and it was like, wonder why this guy had a heart attack. Now, mind you, when I say he's a strong character, he's a strong character. He had been a fighter, and he's just a tough guy. So there's a part of it with a lot of you tough guys out there, tough women, tough people. It's like, I don't want to deal with the feelings. Let's just put them over there. And I'm going to take, in my car analogy, I'm going to take the car where I'm just a powerful firefighter that is a great guy, a great husband, all these things. But I don't want to deal with the feelings. And so finally came out in the session over a short period of time. This person had very important relationships with him. He had these people pass away, not one or two or three. He had four people in his life pass away in a very short period of time. And two of them were very, I don't want to say that they were close to him, but they were close relationships. One of them being a mother. And it's important to understand whatever relationship you have with your mother, there is always an energetic connection to the mother. We have a etheric umbilical cord that goes from us to our mother for, our lives. And so it doesn't matter whether you have a close relationship or not. There are, let's just say, elements within our body where we are attached to our mothers. I mean, we come from them. So this guy didn't want to deal with the feelings of it. So he pushed them aside. It's okay. It's all right. It's, I didn't have a close relationship with her anyway. And then the other person was a very close relationship. I'm not going to deal with that as well. And so it's no accident when we push feelings away and we push and push them away and we don't deal with them. It's kind of like this glass of water. Imagine this is your heart and it gets full to the brim with feelings that we're not processing out. So something happens and it overflows. It's too much pressure on the heart. Something's got to give. Well, I'm pretty sure this hit home. And I shared with him that it's, we were designed to feel. That's one of the main things we do. In fact, we came into these human bodies to feel. We came in to experience all of the being human parts of us, which is why when you're looking at Greg Braden and the business of being to AI, taking on these elements where we don't own our humanness, that's why we came here. And so a lot of us learn in a lifetime, like my client, I'm just not going to deal with the feelings. And to be fair, many people come in and they have suppressed those emotions. They don't want to feel that. It doesn't feel good. And I'll just put that car over here. When I'm working with people, and it's in my book under the heading of The Crash, for many of us, when we have trauma, it's like the car hitting a wall. So the car represents the body. For those of you that haven't watched me before, the driver is your soul, and it's an energy-powered car. So there's three versions of the driver. There's the number one driver, whatever you want to call it. There is this power that when we use it is incredible. That's our first driver. And that's a guide for us. That's that part of us that sees things 360. And so there's the next driver, which is the adult in the front seat. And that's the person that's logical, reasonable, has that willpower, deduction. That's that person that's making those intentional choices. Then we have the kid in the back seat. The kid in the back seat is the one with all the feelings. That's the one that's angry, anxious, worried, stressed, guilty, shameful, remorseful, all of those things. And a lot of times it's in judgment. So when we have those feelings going on, that's a part of life. That would be a normal thing that would happen. And also for the back seat person, that's also that playful part of us. That's that spontaneity. That's that, childlike naivete, that essence of us that is, special. So when I was talking with my client, he was a firefighter, and I had another firefighter that I was working with that was a female. And one day I've been working with her and trying to explain to her, you want to be the driver in the front seat and address what's going on in the back seat. And so I was laughing because one day I'm parked, and here comes a huge fire truck, and it's coming right by me, and I'm looking at it. It's got the driver in the front seat, but it also has a driver in the back seat. So I called her and I was like, oh my gosh, you're a fighter. It's like you want to be that person driving in the front seat, but the kid in the back seat's the one that's driving, and you're banging all over the place. So I told this guy, and he was the driver of the fire engine. So I told this guy, I said, the story of what I had told her, and he laughed. He said, Audrey, I've driven both sides. I've driven in the front, I've driven the back as well. And he was explaining that to me. And I told him, I said, so you need to communicate with the one in the back. And I told him, I said, when you're driving, isn't the person back there wearing like headphones, and you're talking to them and you're giving them direction on where it is that you want to go and how you're going to get there? And I told him, I said, when we are not addressing the kid in the back seat and when they're just driving, it's like we're going to just bang up against everything. We're going to be having a hard time. So what you want to do is, for him in particular, because everybody's different, it's like you want to really get when you are being the adult and you're letting the kid know, look, I'm driving and I get it that you're having a hard time back there. So like for him, when he's going through this grief about the parent and grief about these people that have died, it's him addressing the grief together and using the first driver to combine like this trio that you're working through these issues. If we don't address what's going on in the back seat, it's like that's the one that's driving. And I've had people before, they've been angry for years. They've been upset for months. They've got whatever they've got going on, or they pushed it so far over here and they're so trying to be the adult and taking that separate car. And just on a quick side note, when we have that trauma and we don't want to deal with those feelings and we take another car, like this guy is like, I'm going to be just a strong guy car. There's many people that take the addiction car. I'm just going to check out. Many people that take I'm just going to be perfect car, and I'm not going to address these imperfections. I'm just going to keep moving forward. There's a gazillion different cars that you can take, a different method to not have to deal with what those feelings are. So take a moment and think about, what are the things that you're doing? How do you check out? Sometimes people are gaming. Sometimes people are, shopping. There's all these different avenues where we want to just not have to deal. But the cool thing is, when you understand and learn that you get to be not having to re-experience it, you're understanding it, and you're being that adult that's able to communicate with that inner child of you. I had another person today, this person I've been working with for a long time, and she keeps coming up against the same stuff, and it's the same kind of thing. She's never addressed the thing that's rolling that keeps creating this pattern in her life. And I told her today, I said, you've never done this piece where you look at your timeline and because we could literally map it out. I've known this girl for a long time. She's wonderful and she's a creative masterpiece. I mean, she can make shit happen, but she keeps ending up in the same story, in the same pattern. And so I told her today, it's like, look, when you are able to be the adult and you're just looking with compassion, not judgment, at your timeline, and you can see way back here where it started, and then you can see it happen again and again. What she had been telling me in this session, and I know she doesn't mind, she was like, I should have done things differently. I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have known better. As long as you're judging it, as long as we should do whatever, there you are. So when you take out the judgment and you be in the moment and you're like, all right, if I could have, I would have. I didn't. I made these things happen. And now in order to change what's happening, You got to address what had been going on. You be the adult and you have that conversation with her. And some of the example of this, because it's important, and I know I've said this on here before, but it's important to get this is the way to do it, as far as I can tell. You know, when I first became a practitioner at Agape, they were telling me, Audrey, you really want to address the inner child. And I was like, no, she was stupid. She made stupid choices. She did stupid things. No, 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 no. I was taking I'm just going to keep moving on car. I'm going to learn new things. I'm going to do new things. And I don't want to deal with that. And my little heart was holding on to that stuff. So along the way, things were happening. And it's like, I finally got it. I need to be the adult and I need to have that conversation with her. And the best story I have about that for my own self, and this is what I highly recommend people doing. I drink tea or a lot of days, most days, and I have honey in it. And I learned along the way that with tea, you want to stir it with a wooden spoon, something about the enzymes. So I kept using the same spoon that I had from the store. And I kept thinking in my mind, I should get a new spoon. I need another wooden spoon. And then I kept not getting one. And finally, I asked the question, because when you're doing this process, you're asking yourself critical thinking questions. Why, when, where, what, how? Is it true? Those kind of things you're asking yourself, you're asking the kid. So one day it came out of my mind, my mouth. I was like, I wonder why I'm not getting a wooden spoon. And it hit me out of nowhere. The heart. I'd been storing this my whole life. And it wasn't just about the wooden spoon. I was like, oh shit. You know what? If I were a kid and I was told to go get the spoon, it wasn't going to be pretty. And then I realized I'm holding on in my beautiful heart those feelings, the story of what happened as a kid. So here's what you do. Whether it's something that happened as a kid in the 0 to 8, those programs that we take on, or if it's an experience that we have had. When we are still holding on to emotion around any experience, it's in here. It's in the little brain. It's in the heart. And it's taking up space. So here's what you do. And I highly recommend it. I marched my little self off to the beach because I like to be in nature, and that's where I can really be grounded and be able to process. And I sat down on the beach this day and I had a conversation with her. I'm being the adult, so I'm not re-experiencing it. I'm kind of like nurturing her and I'm redirecting her and having her take on a new belief around this, because back when it happened, I believed what I believed. So here's what the conversation looked like. Oh, gosh. Mom didn't know how to handle her rage. She didn't know what to do with us. And we made it about us. We thought we were bad. We thought we were wrong. And I'm having this whole conversation, like I'm literally looking at her, like imagining her back there and the, pain that she was feeling. And so I'm letting her know it was never about you. You were never wrong. You were never bad. She just never learned how to manage her rage. So she let that rage out on us. So as I'm being the adult and I'm telling her, there's a part of it where I am hypnotizing myself. That's what you're doing when you're having that kind of a conversation. You're reprogramming. You're changing the neural pathways in your mind so that you're able to let it go. Dump the trunk. This is your trunk, your heart, as far as the car analogy goes. So that whole experience on the beach took about 3 minutes and I was sobbing. And then it was done. and I had released it, and I felt this incredible sense of freedom, and it was fabulous. And there's nothing on that anymore. And so we all have these moments in our timeline where we hold on to guilt, to shame, to remorse. Huge one for many people is anger. Somebody did something back here, and you're going to stay angry because it's a powerful thing to do. Take the angry car. I'm just never going to forgive them. What they did was bad. It was wrong. Well, it was way back here in the experience, and you're still carrying it. And your heart is the most important part of you. So when you're still carrying it in your heart, there's not that extra room for all the feelings that are over here, starting at the bottom of it with calm, all the way up to deep appreciation and love. So when you're looking at your life, when we hold on to those feelings and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up, it's no accident that so many people are having problems with their heart. It's too much. We've got to dump those hard feelings out and understand our ability to process them and let them go and be in the choice point now. It's wildly important, especially in this moment in time. Our bodies are getting taxed one way after another. And this is the thing that was first in your body. It's the most important thing, right next to your quantum computer. So when you're owning that ability to be the adult and use that energy. So on that day on the beach, I sat there, and what I do, I literally sit there and I'll imagine the energy of the earth coming up into my body. And I am filling myself with that kind of strong energy. And then I'm imagining the energy of the universe coming down into me. And I'm creating this fullness that is supporting me. That's the first driver. You got to remember, this little human body, it's just a little portion of who you are. Most of you is there. And that intelligence is flowing through you as you. So as your heart is open, that chakra is open, all of the chakras open up, you're in your power. So as I sat on the beach, I locked and loaded the first driver. Thank you so much. Thanks for driving with me, as me. And then I am being the adult, checking her, checking what had happened, and in the process of letting it go. So I want you to think about your timeline and how much you might still be holding on to. There's a process to let it go. And as we let these things go and we become lighter and more free and more sovereign, that is a massive blessing in our life. So I watched this guy and his wife get that. And it was like watching them walk out lighter and more free. So when you're owning that process, it doesn't have to be a whole huge thing. It doesn't have to be like you're doing everything at once. You take it one little step at a time. Like if you were to actually go to your trunk, is all this crap in there and it's weighing down the back of your car. You're not going to go in there and just drag everything out and dump it. You take a little bit, throw it away, and you're driving a little lighter. Another little bit, throw it away. A little lighter. So it's a process. It's not anything that happens overnight. So there. I'm going to look at these comments for a quick minute. Yeah. Yes, now I'm reading your comments. Yes, definitely. Glory be to God. Yes. Your bong will put out the fire. Where is my bong? Actually, I don't own a bong. And I am reading. Good. Yes. So I'm reading now, but I'm also, now I'm going to go into a whole nother topic. And I have notes. So the topic that I want to go on to is what's happening right now for many of us. Well, for all of us. I do a whole analogy about the sun, and it's like the analogy is that the sun is up there in the sky, and it's the most powerful thing that we're aware of. It's bringing in energy and it's putting it back out. And when we're owning that within us, we're in our power. We're the flippin' sun. And sometimes we're acting like the moon. The moon is at the effect of other things. The moon, literally, in order to be seen, has to be lit up by something else. And sometimes we're the dark side of the moon. So when you are being like the moon, it's all good. In fact, the moon is about emotions. So when you're acting like the moon, that's when you go into that critical thinking. Why would I do this? Am I at the effect of somebody else? What does that mean? How does that look? More importantly, where did this come from? Why would I do it? And you're not just questioning it, you're answering the questions. And then you're, in my book, it's called doing the fear into power. So my clients come in and they get this playbook, and it's like a brief condensed, like, this is what the heart does in the body. And when you are in the process of looking at things, these are the fear feelings, the power feelings. When you're in your fear feelings, it's always a belief. So you're questioning, what's this belief? What's going on with it? And then there is this tool, the fear into power tool. So you're not just questioning, you're looking at the timeline. What happened back there? What happened to that version of me? Why did that happen? Like when I told you about the wooden spoon. There's a few other examples that I give in my book, but it's important to get, when we're being the powerful sun, that's when you're in your power. And quick side note, I was talking with somebody who was going to go to court the next day. And I said to this woman, because she's going in by herself, representing herself against somebody who was like a big, big deal. And I told her, I said, you need to walk in that courtroom and you need to own your power to be the flippin' sun. And she looked at me and she goes, oh, I get it. Come a little closer. She went into that courtroom the next morning, turned the whole thing around. She turned around that energy on it. She just owned it, and it ended up being a non-issue. So the reason why I'm bringing up the sun and how it's affecting all of us, we're having a very large solar flash right now. It's the biggest one that's been for a while. And why is that important? Aside from the fact that we can see the effects of it down in Florida and Texas, you can see the what is it called? Who knows what it's called when you see the lights from the sun when it's doing that? Nobody's answering. First person that answers that question gets a prize. What are those called? At any rate, why is this important is because these solar flashes that are happening, they say that it doesn't really affect the human health so much. Aurora Borealis, Nick Newmont, you're going to get a prize and you're going to like it. So I want you to look at this, and these are my notes, so bear with me as I'm reading it with you. There's clear evidence-based breakdown of how solar flares, especially X-class flares, coronal mass ejections. So the sun's up there, and it is literally like having these explosions that are happening, and they're directed at the Earth. So if you feel like you've been feeling a little funky lately, if the emotions have been in an all-time high, if you've got these body things that are going on, there's a reason for it. Aside from the fact that there's a lot going on emotionally with people with many different layers of our society at the moment. But when you're looking at that, these effects are now well documented by all these people, peer reviewed, and your nervous system shifts into the fight flight. So when these flashes are happening, these solar flashes, remember, you're an energetic being and everything is about frequency. So when those solar flashes are happening, your body feels the energy of it, very much like your body can feel the energy of the different things that are going on with regard to the different energies that we all experience. Just for instance, with our electronics, we are affected by those. I have a good friend of mine who was just talking about that in a group the other day. And it's important to understand how we're affected. So it can affect blood pressure spikes. So wait, let me back up a bit. Your nervous system shifts into fight or flight, even if you're sitting still. So there's that part of us where we, you go down into that part where you're in flight, where you just want to, or you're in fight about it, which can cause people to get a little feisty, a little spicy, a little snappy, as I like to say. So it also has blood pressure spikes, and it can create melatonin production is suppressed up to 70%. So it can cause insomnia, shallow sleeping, next day brain fog. It can create increased capillary stickiness and blood velocity. So it's a higher risk of blood clots, strokes in vulnerable people. So when you're hearing these things, it's not to be going into fear about it. It's going into, all right, like for instance, my doctor, my holistic doctor, told me that I have sticky blood, right? So I'm not going to be afraid of it. I'm not going to be upset about it. She gives me something that helps the blood flow a little easier. So there's solutions for the different things that we experience within our body. Like if you're having challenges with your heart, beets are a great thing to use. There's all these remedies that are grown by Mama Gaia, our earth, that help with whatever these body syndromes are that we take on. So if you've got things that are going on within your blood, you want to look at what helps to increase blood flow if it's feeling a little sticky. So my holistic doctor gave me some supplements, took them, and my blood is doing much better. So then it also can create migraines and cluster headaches. And the emotional and psychological effects, again, there's all these different sources for it. So we have sudden anxiety, irritability, or doom scrolling spikes. And that correlates with 41% rise in ER visits for panic attack. So when you are looking at this and there's an emotional upheaval, we're going to get to what the solution for that is in just a minute. So heightened intuition, vivid dreams. A lot of people are having vivid dreams right now. There's no accident for that. We're energetic beings. We're pulling in like the internet, and it's activating those dreams. Like Nick and I have woken up and it's like, wow, I had the craziest dream and very vivid. So if that's going on, it can be an opportunity right now to tap into your intuition, tap into your dreams. That's your subconscious talking with you, giving you solutions, giving you new perception. Heightened, all right, here's where, all right. So I'm just going to read this again. Heightened intuition, vivid dreams, or downloads reported by 30% of empaths and sensitives during X flares. So then also relationship arguments increase. People, again, feeling snappy. So energetic spiritual effects experienced by millions, now measurable, and the chakra system and meridian flow disrupted, sudden heat in the third crown chakra, third eye, heart palpitations, or root chakra grounding loss. The Schumann resonance, they can look at the energy of the earth, and there's been spikes with that. And so when you're looking at all of this, what are you supposed to do about it? So there are certain things that can be very beneficial. And if I'm mentioning anything that is like a supplement or something like that, it's important for you to do your own research on it and find those things that work for you. Also, maybe talk to your doctor, whether it's a holistic doctor, regular doctor, and manage them within your own unique experience. But for a lot of us, there is a lot of cortisol that's rolling right now. I'm going to back this up a quick second. If you're looking at the car analogy, right? When we're having a lot of heightened emotions, especially like anger and anxiety, are a very big deal. When you're looking at the car analogy, it's like your car is in park and your foot is massively on the gas. So on the inside of us, we're revving and revving, and we're producing a lot of adrenaline, a lot of cortisol, a lot of stress hormones. So what you can do to counteract these things, there's things that you can take and there's things that you can do. I'll start with the take things. When we're over here in those kind of feelings and we're producing all of that, if you're taking something like 5-HTP, it's a dopamine and serotonin enhancer. To deal with the cortisol, you want to take something like a cortisol manager. You also want to focus on eating clean, eating organic, really making healthy choices, maybe limiting the amount of alcohol that you're taking. You know, certain things can be very beneficial. Certain herbs can be very beneficial. So you want to do your own research on that and find those things that work for you. But the 5-HTP and the cortisol manager in particular, those usually don't have a lot of side effects. If you are taking SSRIs, you want to really look into not taking the 5-HTP because sometimes that can have an adverse reaction to that. But again, you want to do your own research and talk with doctors and figure these things out. But the other thing that really can help, because we're energetic beings, you want to go and be in nature. Nature is energy. And so when you're getting away from all the electronics, that's why I like to go to the beach or up into the woods on my camping trips. When you are vibing with that, it helps to bring down the parasympathetic nervous system so your body is able to be calm, to realign, and be building your health. When you're in these kind of feelings, it's taxing your immune system. When you take that time to be in nature, to meditate, journaling is a really good idea. And I want to get into that in just a minute. You want to do whatever it is for you to be in the calmness authentically of your heart, not taking the calm car and having all the things over here. You want to be authentically calm so that your body can be in the flow of its own energy, its own health. When we're calm, we're building our immune system. When we're not, it's not building the immune system. It's just as simple as that. So, like for an example, I have a client that was in today. I sent her a playlist because her mind is very, very busy. So if you have a mind that's very busy, you want to do certain things with it. And a lot of us have been kind of overthinking because there is so much. And if you're a scroller, if you are watching news a lot of the time, that creates a lot of overthinking. Your brain doesn't have a time to chill, to be down, to relax. So it's important to find those things that work for you. So when we're looking at that fear and power tool that I was talking about, that is a form of journaling. So you're looking at, it starts always with the feeling. In fact, I don't have a lot of time. Check your feelings. When you're in any of those feelings, that's always a belief. And that's where you do the journaling, do the inner work, that fear and power work. So when you are writing literally with your hand, it closes that mental loop. So instead of looping and looping, you're taking it out of the loop, you're putting it onto paper, and you're perceiving it in a new way. And you're bringing in certain parts of your brain that instead of it just rolling and you're just lost in it and feeling rather powerless, you're bringing it to a mental awareness, and you're doing the process of, what is this? It's not who I am, it's what's going on at the moment. So when you're doing that process of my fear into power work, you're taking it and owning your ability to see it, which is a big part of all of it. A lot of times we don't even get it that it's going on. So when you're actually able to take it and put it front and center, this is what it is. And then you're in the process of understanding it. That's the next thing about it. Oh, like for instance, any of the experiences that we've ever had, it's always something in the timeline. So when you're able to be here now and see it as the adult in your timeline, and you're writing these things down, it doesn't have to be a journal. It doesn't have to be all this writing, little notes. And then you get to the point where it's like, oh, I see what the trauma was, or what the drama had been, or whatever the thing, the experience was. Then the intention always leads the way. So on the intention, on another side of the paper, I am. What are you creating? What is that thing that you're now telling the kid in the back seat? I am, we are. I'm driving now, and this is what we're doing. So you're redirecting those neural pathways into what the adult is choosing. And the more you do that, the more you're leveling up your consciousness, the more you're rerouting all of those old programs that we run, getting rid of all that stuff that we hold on to, and you're creating your life with great intention. So I'm obviously running out of time here. It's amazing how much I can talk in an hour, for goodness sakes. So if you're interested, you can go to my website, audreynewmont.com, and I have a whole page there that is my book, The Mind Trip Game. I've taken all of this and I made it really simple. And thank you again, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, all these people that are in my book for teaching me. And then I am now able to put it into this easy to use format so that you are able to change your own mind, dump your trunk, and do all of those things. So when you go there, I have a place where you can actually buy the book, or you can go to the YouTube channel, Conscious Mind Tripping, and there's a whole playlist where I'm reading the book. And if you want, you can go straight to the Fear into Power section of it, and that shows you what I was just talking about, and it goes into much more detail. So there's another one on the timeline. There's another section on constructive communication, which most people could use. People aren't talking very constructively, and people are doing very unconscious things right now. So it's really important for you to hold your own right now. And one of the key things, if you're feeling anxiety, one of the key questions that you're asking yourself is it true? Like, a lot of people could look at these solar flares happening and think, oh my gosh, what could happen? I mean, we could have a Carrington effect. We're not having a Carrington effect. All the electronics are working. Everything's fine right now. And so I'm going to trust that everything's fine until I know otherwise. So you ask yourself those questions when anything comes up and you're imagining something could horribly happen. You're questioning yourself, is that true? Is it real? Is it happening? No. So I'm going to keep myself calm, grounded, centered, focused, and trust that my best and highest is happening. And the best and highest is happening for humanity. So that's what we get to do. And that's you owning your power. And now it's 7:00. I'm right on time. Thank you so much for joining me. Much love to all of you. I will be back here again next week, Wednesday night at 6:00, and I might have a guest. So in the meantime, own your power, do the work. And I love you very much. Bye for now.